to our cottage on the eastern shore of Maryland in a town called Secretary. Our house was built prior to 1900, and we are slowly going room by room and renovating each one. Our walls and ceilings are plaster, and you can see they're badly cracked. The previous owner apparently used thumbtacks at one point to try to save the ceiling from crumbling. The framing that we're using for the shiplap was already installed, and it had a drop ceiling installed over it at one point. First step was to remove all of the old staples off of the boards. We measured the room and then went downstairs to cut off, I believe it was about 3 inches off of each board in order for them to fit. Installing the first board is the trickiest because you need to make sure it is square with your room corners, because this is the board you will work off of. They stack up against this one and you want your lines to be straight. After the first board is installed, the other ones are pretty simple. They're interlocking. You slide them in, hold them tight while your partner takes the nail gun and nails them into the framing. We managed to get half done the first day, and then we sat back and enjoyed a beer, and the next morning we started again. Although the boards are interlocking, it does take some strength to hold them up like that and push them towards each other so they slide in. So you really do need 2 people for this job. This is not a one-person job, and it looks fantastic. I'm just really happy with how we covered all of those imperfections, that's a nice way of saying it, in the plaster on the ceiling. By this point, we really had gotten into our groove and knew what we were doing. I was holding them up and on one end, pressing them against the side. My husband would start on the other end, and we would just nail them in and slowly worked our way across the room to the other side. When we started the project, we started on the left-hand side of the room, which is where you walk into the room through the door and where you see the ceiling from the foyer or the hallway of the upstairs. So that's where I started, and I wanted the full board to start on that side of the ceiling because I knew at the very end we were going to have to cut a board in half in order to make them fit. So think about that when you're doing this and decide which end of the room you want your cut board to be placed. So when we got to the end here, we just had to measure the space between the last board and the wall, and then go downstairs and basically we just cut that board almost in half before we installed it. Here we are installing the last board, the one we just cut, and it was a great fit, and we are done. My husband used the Dremel tool to cut out where the vent cover will go. He also used the tool to cut out around the boards where the ceiling fan will go in the middle of the room. The last step was adding spackle onto the nail holes, and then the ceiling was ready to paint. So the ceiling is up, and today is painting day. So I'm just gonna get on with that task, and I'm just using Behr standard ceiling paint in white and flat, and we'll give it a whirl. We purchased the already primed shiplap boards, so this did make the process a lot easier. Using a brush to paint in between the boards turned out to be really tiresome, so I went ahead and used my Wagner spray gun, and that worked like a charm. That was much easier to do, just spraying in between the boards and then using the roller to finish the work. Finish painting. Looks really good. Let me wrap it up. And next up will be the crown molding and then the floors. We're getting there.